how does that get translated back into teaching and into classroom practice? One point, I mean, two things before I conclude is, while I totally agree with the psycholinguistic point of view in terms of mother tongue and its centrality in preparing children, for their learning, and much more in also in engaging with other languages, I think I would leave you with the question. Yes, while research is the research tells us clearly that children learn better if they learn from their mother tongue. The same research also tells us that they have that capacity quite in those early years to be able to manage a number of languages. So the question I'm throwing to you is, for India with several languages, what is the issue to prioritize? Could we say, because Chief Minister was here and he needs the elements to advocate when they have their interministerial discussion, should we be, is it from an economic standpoint, I know from a human rights point of view also in terms of the priorities and prioritizing, is it possible for India? I know Orissa has done extensive work in terms of multilingual education. Is that a model that is replicable across India? Because when I listened to Professor Menon also, I think he concluded by saying that the centrality of all of this is the teachers, and that if the teachers are well equipped, are given the skills, are motivated, are sent where they are, then they can make a difference. So they are coming also from a different linguistic background. And I think more and more the research also in country is proving that the mastery of the language of the teacher also, it's presenting a major challenge in terms of their interacting with children who come from different linguistic groups. So that's I see a contention there, and how can India take this forward? So three things to take away. I think, like the secretary said, is like, I mean, the evidence is there that points to the different directions. But the question is, how do we move from this evidence to practice and make it practical in a way that it can be scalable? Because when we talk about India, we're talking about huge numbers. We're not talking about 20,000. We're talking about several million of children. So how do we take this to scale? And taking this to scale in a manner that it's still of quality and also inclusive, and touches the diversity, not just culturally, but physically also, because we know that we have children also who are, children with special needs. How do we incorporate them all in this mix? And I think I liked also the fact that, there is still more work for us to do in terms of generating evidence, homegrown evidence in India, to begin to demonstrate what the cost of inaction is. So I would end there. Yeah, thank you.
I think putting any kind of concluding thoughts to a panel as diverse as this is a very difficult topic, but I think Euphrates, you did a wonderful job. I don't know if we have time for questions because you're already well over time. This session started half an hour late, and I know there is a nutritional component to this conference that you want to have. So I'm looking to a few questions, maybe? Sure. So how about we take, maybe 5 questions, and then we give the panelists a chance to reply. Okay. We should start from the back of the classroom always first, because all the well-performing students sit in front. But there's nobody who wants to ask questions at the back. So, okay, middle. Yeah, go ahead. No, Smith behind you. Yeah. They need a microphone, yeah.
Yeah, this is to Professor Mohanty. He mentioned a phrase, language regulates thinking, thought. I think there is an issue here as well in terms of having a theoretical background to what he is trying to communicate to us. I'm just adding on to, and I don't know, that language regulates not in the sense of regulating things. It regulates in terms of providing a basis to engage in discourse, and through that discourse going to higher levels of understanding. So it's not that regulating kind of thing that we should talk about. It's about the discourse facilitated by language in a social process. And that's why I think the social aspect, or the language as a social construct leading to higher levels of critical engagement, has to be seen. And that again implies for how do we teach the second language? Is it a discourse-based process of teaching second language or the first language? I think there is an issue which we need to highlight here as well when we talk about multilingualism.
Other questions? We'll take the questions together and then allow some response. Yeah, go ahead.
I also have a question to Professor Ajit Mohanty. While presenting, he said that he said that multilingual education is required. Since I also believe in that, the specific question to you is that what's your opinion on dealing with the dialects, different dialects in the same mother tongue, like region-wise? So how to deal with it, and based on the experience that you have and done researches on that, what do you say about this, how to deal with the languages?
Shall we take 2 more questions and then there doesn't seem to be too many questions. So the panel was brilliant, I think. Answered all the questions that people had. Professor Mohanty, all questions are directed to you.
Well, let me begin with the capacity of the child to manage languages. We all know that children are capable of acquiring languages much faster than their parents. When parents migrate, they do, obviously. However, we should remember that despite this capacity for multiple languages, we all have that capacity for multiple languages. But what's important is that our thinking and monitoring of other languages are done through the anchoring of the mother tongue or the first language that the child develops. There are children, I am aware, that who acquire simultaneously multiple languages. Things are a little different for them, but there is a strong anchoring of our thinking processes through the mother tongue. In fact, there is a lot of evidence to show that when we acquire subsequent languages, our learning of subsequent languages are monitored through our understanding of the mother tongue and the grammar of the mother tongue, the linguistic features of the mother tongue. So there is a strong monitoring effect there, despite the fact that we are multilingual. Now, yes, language represents thinking in some sense, but what I am saying is that yes, language regulates in the sense, I would still insist on using the term regulates, because even when you talk about discourse level competence and even when you talk about child moving into critical levels of thinking and all that, there also you need language to think. Kindly analyze yourself, think of any of your experience and see if you can talk about or you can think about that experience without using language. Language is basic ingredient of thinking. This question of whether multilingual education model is replicable, I think it is. And I remind all of you to go back into the quotation from Nelson Mandela, which said that everything appears impossible until it is done. And multilingual education may appear impossible, but it can be done, it has been done. Now, dialects and mother tongues. It's unfortunate that most of the policymakers in this country believe that tribal languages are dialects because they don't have a writing system. Now, I asked a very senior bureaucrat as to whether he thinks English is a language. He said, oh, it's a very important language. I said, do you know that English doesn't have a writing system of its own? English has borrowed the writing system from Roman system. Therefore, why should it bother anybody that a language doesn't have a writing system? If a language doesn't have a writing system, it will probably develop one or borrow one, and which has been done in Odisha. We have 10, well, right now 19 languages in which mother tongue based education is being offered, and we have been writing all the languages in Odia with slight modifications, except for Santali, which had its own writing system, Olchiki. So dialectal variations should not bother. Now the question that I think is implicit in your thinking about it is that too many dialects, too many mother tongues. Okay, what can be done? Actually, what we have also tried, incorporating dialectal variations into the written language, into the formal use of a language. Once you do that, you do away with all these multiplicities within the language and the variations within them. Therefore, it's possible to engage with that kind of dialectal. It's a complex problem, I admit, but it can be done. It has been. We have in Odisha, we have tried to deal with that problem with some success. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Mohanty. I think if I can speak for all our panelists, it's been a real privilege to be on a panel like this, which is early in the conference. I see your program that you're going to move towards, perhaps discussing more research, but certainly many more experiences from the ground. And I'd like to just conclude by suggesting a couple of things. One is, I think on this panel, apart from highlighting very key areas where research has been done, but perhaps more research needs to be done and also work done to translate the things that we know into policy. Apart from that, I think that the availability of data over a long period of time has also been highlighted. If I look at what Dr. Srikanth said about really trying to track what happens to children over time, which he used the data that NCRT has, and I look at the CECED and the ASER studies, which is a longitudinal study. I think a case can be made that for a country as large as India with such a large young population, it is time really for various agencies to get together to have a longitudinal sample of children that can be followed over a long period of time, which can address issues of how children grow and develop, whether from the health side or from the education side, or really looking at the links together. I think India is deficit in not having such a national level data set that can grow and serve many purposes. And I know I'm sitting next to somebody possibly who can help to take this forward. But again, along the same lines, this is a request to CECED that these kinds of conferences, often, if we have the opportunity to be there, you learn a lot from people who are on the panel as well as from the audience. Will there be something that comes out of this conference which can be much more widely circulated? And also whether some of these available, both research as well as I think innovations and practices that will be discussed further, could be available not just in English, but in other languages that we could then share more widely, both among researchers and practitioners across the country. In this room right now, at least from the people that I recognize, a large number of people who are very centrally involved both in the practice and in the research of early childhood education are present here. And I think they would all agree that having things that are easy to access in languages that a wide number of practitioners across the country can read would be a wonderful thing to bring out of a rich conference like this. So thank you very much for having us here and for allowing us to speak and giving us all the time that you have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. So please. It was truly an enlightening session. Now I would request my colleague Komal to present this small token of gift to our guests, please. Dr. Rukmani Banerjee. Dr. Euphrates Gobina. She's there. Mr. Y. Srikanth. Thank you. Ms. Aprajita Bharga Chaudhary. Mr. Ajit Mohanty. And Ms. Smriti Bhava. Thank you. I think everyone must be a bit tired. We can move for lunch. I request everyone to please. Excuse me, sir.